Lida filed for divorce from her husband as soon as she learned about his infidelity. They were divorced quickly, as they had no children and no shared assets. The only property was a house that had been inherited by her husband, in which Lida had planned the entire design, managed and paid for the renovations. However, since it was her husband's house, by law, it could not be divided. Lida loved that house very much. She had chosen all the furnishings with great care. She had only one day left before leaving the house. She gathered all her things and decided to host a farewell dinner that evening. She prepared shrimp, black caviar, opened a bottle of wine, and lit candles. After dinner, she took several half-eaten shrimp tails, dipped them in caviar, and stuffed them into the curtain rods. The next day, her ex-husband arrived at the house with his new girlfriend. His girlfriend was thrilled to be in such a luxurious home. She loved everything about it, the layout, the renovations, and the furniture. But they were only happy for the first few days. Then an unbearable smell began to permeate the house. It was constant. Neither ventilation nor odor eliminators helped. They decided to sell the house and buy a new one. A month passed, but they could not find a buyer. Everyone who came to see the house could smell that awful odor. No one wanted to live in such a place. Her ex-husband and his girlfriend had to take out a large loan and buy a new house without having sold the old one. Lida called her ex-husband about a month later to see how he was doing. He told her about the problems with selling the house, without going into details about why it wasn't selling. Lida said she missed her house very much and would like to buy it back. However, she offered a price significantly lower than what the house was listed for. Her ex-husband immediately agreed. The deal was finalized, and a week later the satisfied man watched as the movers packed up his things to move to the new house. All of them, including the curtain rods. I have two friends from my college days, and one of my friends was getting married. She invited us both to go with her to a wedding salon for the weekend and choose a dress. But on the day we agreed, our third friend was called to work and we went with her alone. We chose several dresses, and my friend asked me to take pictures of her in the outfits on her phone to send these photos and videos to her mother. I took my mobile phone, turned on the camera, and at that moment a message came from our friend who was called to work. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw that she had sent my photo. I didn't understand why. My curiosity got the better of me. I opened the chat, and what I saw simply amazed me. It turns out that my friends were constantly sending my photos behind my back, discussing and making fun of me. How I dress, how I speak, how I eat. I was offended to tears. I put the phone in the bride's purse and left. I was driving home and crying. Then the bride called me to find out where I had gone, and I honestly told her everything. She started to get indignant that I had no right to read her messages. It was none of your business. Then she started saying that it was all a joke. They didn't mean anything bad. And anyway, if you think about it like that, she invited me to her wedding, which means she treats me well. And in the evening, a third friend called, and instead of apologizing, accused me of intruding into someone else's life and offending the bride. I felt really bad. I even started to feel guilty. On the one hand, I understand that you can't read other people's messages, but on the other hand, I would continue to be friends and love people who make fun of me behind my back. So, after thinking a little, I came to the conclusion that I did the right thing. I don't need fake friends who smile to my face, but say nasty things behind my back. All summer, Sandra spent visiting her grandmother. It happened that she lived in another city with her parents because her father was offered a good job there. So she only visited her grandmother during the summer holidays. She loved her grandmother very much and enjoyed spending time with her. They went to the movies together, took walks, and her grandmother taught her how to bake pies. Sandra always asked her grandmother to give her a dog. But Sandra's parents didn't want to take on that responsibility because they were constantly busy with work. Her grandmother always said that when she grew up, she could get a dog. And Sandra grew up, but she never got a dog. First, there was university, and then work. She didn't have time for a dog either. When her grandmother passed away, Sandra couldn't arrive in time for the funeral because there were no tickets available. She arrived only by the evening. Almost all the relatives had already left. She sat with her mother and sister, reminiscing about all the good moments. Sandra remembered how she dreamed of having a dog and asked her grandmother to give her one. The next day, she went to the cemetery with her sister. Her sister walked ahead, showing Sandra the way. Just before reaching their grandmother's grave, her sister suddenly stopped and said, "Look!" "What? What is it?" Sandra asked. She peeked over her sister's shoulder to see what was going on. At first, she saw her grandmother's photo among the flowers, then noticed some movement. On the grave, under the wreath, something was moving and squeaking. Sandra stepped closer and saw on her grandmother's grave was a small puppy, dirty and skinny. Sandra picked it up and asked, "Little one, how did you get here?" Sandra gently stroked it between the ears. The puppy squeaked and nudged its nose into her palm, licking it. Her sister watched all this and said, "Here's a gift from your grandmother. You asked for a dog." Tears welled up in Sandra's throat. She hugged the puppy even tighter. The puppy licked her cheek just like her grandmother always did, right in that spot. They exchanged glances and didn't understand. How could this be? Was it just a coincidence or a gift from their grandmother? But there was no time to speculate. They needed to wash the puppy, take it to the clinic, buy everything necessary, and most importantly, feed it. 2 days later, Sandra returned home to her city with the puppy, and surprisingly, she had enough time for everything, for work and for walks with the dog. This is a story from my childhood. I remember that once we went to visit relatives with my parents. In our family, there were 3 children, me, my sister, who is 2 years younger than me, and my younger brother, who is 11 years younger than me. So we went to visit a family that also had 2 children, peers of my sister and me, only they were boys. My mom decided to buy everyone a chocolate bar. Everyone, except for my sister and me. She said there was no money and that we were already grown up. At that time, my sister and I were 13 and 11 years old. So she and my dad bought 3 chocolate bars for the boys, friends, and for my brother. And she told us that if we were asked why we weren't eating our chocolate at the visit, we should say that we had eaten it on the way. We felt very hurt when everyone was eating that chocolate while we just watched. And we couldn't say anything against it because any disobedience was punished with beatings. I believe that my mom acted wrongly. I think that if there was no money, then she shouldn't have bought chocolate at all, or she should have bought cheaper chocolate or candies for everyone. What do you think? Did my mom act correctly? Write in the comments. I had a friend. She always asked me to take her to the vet with her dog, or to the supermarket for groceries, and then take the groceries to her apartment. Sometimes she asked me to take something and bring it to her. But I didn't care, because I drive and she doesn't. Besides, she's a friend. How could I not help her? So I was her free taxi until a very unpleasant incident happened. Once she needed me to bring manure from some farm to her dacha in bags. I refused. Firstly, I didn't want to wash the car after, excuse me, this crap. Secondly, the smell didn't disappear right away, and I didn't want to end up in a stinking car. So after my refusal, she began to offer me her husband's car with displeasure. I asked her, "Why doesn't your husband bring you this manure in bags if you need it so urgently?" To which my friend answered me without embarrassment that they didn't want to wash their car afterwards, and the stench would linger in the car. After her answer, I was simply stunned. In other words, they were too lazy to wash the car and didn't want to smell the unpleasant smell. But they didn't care about my car. After that incident, I kept communication with her to a minimum, and I no longer work as a free taxi driver. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new episodes. Share your stories and impressions in the comments, and maybe your story will become a masterpiece in one of our upcoming videos. Let's dive into the world of slimes and stories together.